we are supposed to study summary queries. So previously we have seen retrieving data from single table, and then we saw how we can retrieve data from more than one tables. And today we will see how we can find average values, maximum and minimum, like that. There are 6 aggregate functions. We will learn how to use them. So let me share my screen. I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes.
So as you can see, when you use a aggregate function, okay, aggregate function, which are also called column functions. That query is called a summary query. Okay, so summary query in a sense, it is a select statement that includes aggregate function. Okay, so if you want to find maximum value or minimum value, average value, if you want to find the total of a column, or count how many values, how many entries are there, how many rows are there. So these are called aggregate functions. So if you use aggregate function in a query, SQL statement, that SQL select statement is called a summary query. Okay, it is called a summary query, and these queries will return one value. These queries return one value. So you can use more than one functions in a summary query. So we will see an example so that we can understand. These are the functions, aggregate functions available: AVG, average, and sum, minimum, min, maximum, max, count all, and count. So the last two are count all and count. So count function, it counts the null values. So unknown values will be ignored. The last one, count all function, it counts how many rows are there in a table or the result set. Okay. So these are the 6 functions available. These are called aggregate functions, and we will see examples so that we can understand the use of it. Okay. Let me start my management studio. I'm zooming in, and I'm going to use accounts payable database. Okay. So these numeric values are available in our invoice table. So I'm going to display the contents in the invoices table. Here we have invoice ID, vendor ID, invoice number, invoice date, invoice total, payment total, credit total, and terms ID, invoice due date, and payment date. So invoice total can be taken first. Let's see how we can use a sum function. So select sum invoice total. So we are using the function name, and then within bracket the column name, right? Select sum invoice total from invoices. Okay, let's run this code, and here we get only one value. Okay, one value. So what it does is it totals, this function totals all the values here, and it is giving us one single value. Okay, so here we have $214,290.51 dollars. Okay, so it returns only one value. We can give a name for this column alias we can give as invoice total. Okay, invoice total, or we can give another name, any good name, total purchases. Okay, so if somebody asks, if a manager asks you how much we have purchased so far, how much have purchased so far. So if somebody asks a question like this, so this will be the answer. How we can select, we can total them all, like Excel function it works. So again they can ask, what is the lowest purchased, or lowest, what is the lowest value, lowest amount of purchase. So what is the lowest amount of purchase? So for lowest we can use a function called min function. Okay, so we can find that. Select minimum invoice total as lowest amount from invoices. So the lowest amount of invoice is $6. Order by invoice total AC. Okay, no need AC. Here you see the lowest amount is 6. At the same time, somebody can ask us, what is the maximum amount of purchase? So what is the maximum amount of purchase? Highest amount? Purchase. So highest can be found using max function. Max function. So let's see this. The highest amount is $37,966.19. Okay. So here we can see select max invoice total as highest purchase amount from invoices. You see the same amount has come. And then somebody can ask, what is the average amount of sales? What is the average amount of sales? Amount of purchase, correction. Amount of purchase. Average. For average, we have a function called AVG. AVG function. Okay. So select average invoice total as a average amount from invoices. Okay. So average, in a sense, it's going to sum all the amount and then divide it by 114. Okay, it's going to total them all and it's going to divide the value by 114. Okay, so that's the average amount. So again they can ask, how many purchases we have done. Okay, how many invoices are there? So in that instance, we can say count all, right? Count all from invoices. So how many invoices are there in the table? There are 114. Okay, we can see number of invoices. Okay, number of invoices. So last one, from how many vendors? Okay, from how many vendors have we purchased? Because there may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that, and only from 2 or 3 vendors we have purchased repeatedly. Okay, like this. From 5 and 1 we didn't buy anything. So in those instances we can use select. Okay, select count vendor ID as number of vendors from invoices. Okay, so here there is a problem. I will show you. It is showing 114 because there are 114 records in the query, same 114. But when you run this query, you can see vendor IDs, they are repeated. Okay, so 115 comes 3 times, 97 comes twice, and 123 comes 5 times. So they are duplicated. So if you want to remove duplicates, what keyword we have to include? If you want to remove duplicates, what keyword we use?
Distinct.
Exactly. Thank you. Distinct keyword we use. Okay. Select distinct vendor ID. And let's run this. There are only 40 from only 34 vendors. We have done purchases repeatedly. Okay. Repeatedly we have purchased. So these are the aggregate functions we use. Okay. These are the aggregate functions we use. So let me put them all in one line. Okay. So they run individually. So individually they are run. So what we can do is we can have all of them in a single line. Also we can have. Okay. We can have all of them in a single query as well. So we will see that in 1 or 2 minutes. Adan is said we will continue in 1 minute. So let's continue. So this can be written in a single query as well. What I can do is I can copy them and paste. Okay. So let me copy and paste and then get out of this select keyword and this from. Okay. Comma, 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 and comma. So select some invoice total as total purchases, and then min invoice total as the lowest amount, max invoice total as highest purchase amount, and average invoice total as average amount, and count all as number of invoices, and count distinct vendor ID as number of vendors. Okay, from invoices. So like this we can have. So comma is separating this. Let me run this. You see, all these functions are used in a single query. Okay. So if you want to add a column, we will see. Okay, later you will see in a group by groups. So now we will see how we can do calculation. Okay, calculation in a sense putting a condition. Okay, we would like to put a condition here. So again, I want to write the code for selecting all record from invoices table, invoices, and here we have a column invoice total. Okay, invoice total and payment total and credit total, right? So when we make the purchase, invoice total comes, invoice amount comes, we can make a payment. Okay, we can make a payment. We made the payment on this date. Okay, we made the payment on this date. So this payment is there and no balance. No balance is there. And sometimes we will, if we purchase for $1,000 and if we are making a payment of $900 and credit may be some amount, we can say credit for $100. Okay. Say for example, invoice total is $1,000 and we are making the payment of $900 and $100 can be credit total. Okay, credit total. This is a payment total and invoice total. This is a payment total, and this is invoice total. Okay, invoice total. Sometimes, say for example, invoice total is 1,000 and we are making a payment of 800 and we are agreeing for 100 rupees, $100 as credit total. So still there is a balance of $100. So this can be called as due amount. Okay, due amount. So according to the database that is designed here, or in our case, they call it as due amount. Okay, so we will see the due amount first. Okay, if there is any invoices with due amount, so step by step we will calculate. Okay, so first let me run select invoice number. I will let this the invoice number, and then invoice total minus payment total minus credit total, payment total minus credit total. Okay, from invoices. No red marks. Okay, let me put a bracket here and I would like to call it as due. Let's run this. Here it is showing due amount, no due amounts, but for explanatory purpose there may be some due amounts. Okay, here we find some due amounts. So invoice total is there, payment total is there, credit total is there. Still there may be some amount that is due amount. Okay, so due amounts are there. The second step is I would like to have a where clause. If I want to show only those due amounts, we can have a where clause. Okay, excuse me, where is greater than 0. Okay, so here all are 0. Greater than 0, I would like to find. So these are the amount with due. These are the invoice numbers with due. Okay, now I would like to count how many invoices are that there like this and the amount, total amount. So what I can do is I would like to have count. Okay, undo this. Count invoice number as number of invoices. Okay, So I'm going to count how many 11. I'm going to count how many invoices are there. Then I want to find the total amount. I want to find the total amount. Okay. For that I'm using a sum function. So we can call it total due. Total due from invoices. The others are same. You see here, from 11 invoices, we have to make a due of $32,020.42. Okay. So this is how we do calculations. The same can be applied with date values as well. Okay. So let's run this again. And what we can do is we can copy and paste. We will remove this count function and we will remove this sum function. So invoice number as number of invoices. No need for this. Okay. And we can ask invoice date. Invoice date. So let's see what are the invoice dates found. We have some dates. Okay. We have some dates. So we can order them. Order by invoice date. So it is starting from 10th of January 2020. It goes up to 1st of February 2020. So we can have a range, date range we can have. So what we can do is we can use end function, okay, end keyword, where one condition is this: end compound. Yes, Sihara. Yes. Any question? You raised your hand. Any question?
No, sir.
Fine. So we are going to have two conditions. One is invoice due must be greater than 0. At the same time, I want to find from 1st of January to 31st January. Okay. So I'm going to say invoice date. Invoice date. If I want to give a range, what keywords I can give? Minimum value and maximum value. If I want to give a date range, what function we give? What keyword we use? Do you remember this?
Yes, sir.
2020 and 2020 31. Let's see. So here we have this. So if you don't have this, we have this value. Okay. So we have these values. Only 224 is removed. Okay. So except 224, there will be the results. Here we have 32,020. If you add this only from 10 invoices, previously it was 11 invoices. Okay, 11 invoices. The last value was this amount 224. It is removed. It is removed because it is the only value from February. So these values are from January. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Fine. So the same functions can be, some of the functions can be used with text value as well. So let's see how it's going to work. Select all from vendors, order by vendor name. Okay. Let's run. So here the first value is this one. Okay, AB office furnishings. Last value is Zilka design. Okay, fine. Let's run this and see. Select min function, vendor name from vendors. We can say first vendor. Yeah, T vendor. You see, the first one comes. Let's have next vendor name as last vendor. Let's run this. This is the last vendor. Also, we can use count function. Count vendor name as number of vendors. Vendors means suppliers, huh? Suppliers. 122 vendors are there. Okay. So this is how we work with aggregate functions. Any doubts? Any questions? Please raise. Yes, between keyword. Any doubts? Please raise your hands. Any doubts? You can raise here. Shall we continue with the other?
Okay, sir.
Fine. So we have seen up to this point. Fine. So next is group by clause. Okay. So we have seen here previously, select from where and order by. We can see the results for by grouping. Okay? Say for example, we have students from Ampara. Okay, Ampara district, again Ampara district, and then gold, and then Candy, Ratnapura, Matale, like that it goes. Okay. So sometimes we want to find how many students are there. Okay, how many students are there? How many students are there? So if somebody asks how many, which function we will use? Max or min or what function?
Count.
Count function we will use. Okay, count function. So if somebody asks you how many vendors are there, we will use
Count.
Count function. Let's see. Okay. So now select count from vendors. So vendor ID. Okay. So vendor ID from vendors. So here we can find there are 122 vendors altogether. So we don't know which vendors from which state, either we don't know. So if you want to find, here we have a column called vendor state, like our vendor district. Here we have a province, like we have state. So we can find from which province, which state, how many vendors are there. Like that we can find. So for that, first we will say as a number of vendors, comma, we will select vendor state. Here we have a count number of vendors and then vendor state. Let's run this and see. So here it is showing vendor state is there's a problem. So when you write a summary query, you have to make sure each column or each expression that you have must be using an aggregate function. So here we are retrieving 3 items, 3 columns. Each column is using an aggregate function. Okay. Excuse me. If you are not using an aggregate function like this, if you are just retrieving the column, then you have to use that column name into in this group by vendor state, group by column. Okay, you see here we have 3 vendors from AZ state, 75 from CA, 1 from CT, like that we have. Still we can order them, order by vendor state. So you have to understand order by comes last, order by comes last, because after choosing, after finalizing the result set, then only we can inject order by clause. So after result set comes, we can order them. We can't order them first and then group. That's not possible. Okay. So order by comes last. Any doubts?
No, sir.
So we will revisit this slide. So the group by clause groups the rows of the result set based on 1 or more columns or expressions. Okay. So it groups the result set based on 1 or more columns or expressions. Here we have mentioned only 1 column. You can group it by more than 1 column. Like here we have district. So we will have this province as well. Okay. This must be what is Rattapura district from? Sabraz, Rattapura?
Yes.
Yeah, SB or something. And Mathabe city. Okay, like that. So we can group by state, that is province, and then we can group by district as well. Maybe Betty and Trinco, like that it comes. Okay. We can group by second level as well. Okay. So here we have only 1. A group by list consists of 1 or more columns or expressions separated by commas. That is okay. When a group by clause is used, the select clause can include aggregate functions, the columns used for grouping, and expressions that results in a constant value. So as I told you, when a group by clause is used, even the count of aggregate functions are used, the column must be having aggregate functions or other columns that are used in group by clause, or any other value may be constants, right? Let's see sample. These are constant values. Okay, so this will be repeated, no issues. Okay, so it can be a column with the aggregate function, a column name that is used in the group by clause, or a constant value, fixed value. Okay. If we include aggregate function in the select clause, the aggregate is calculated for each set of values that result in from the columns named in the group by clause. So if we are using a group by function, the results for this aggregate function will be calculated based on the groups that we mentioned here. So if you run this, we can see for each group, the aggregate function is calculated. For each group, the aggregate function is calculated. This is one group, another group, like that. Okay. If you include multiple items in the group by list, they form a hierarchy where each item is subordinate to the previous one. So here, if you say group by vendor state, comma, vendor city. So first it will group by states, okay. Then there may be some city in this state, another state, and then some city. So it's a hierarchy, okay. So it is a hierarchy, subordinate like that, okay. Like that it goes. The having clause specifies a search condition for a group or aggregate, okay. Having is another keyword we can use, okay. Let's see from select count vendor ID, comma, some invoice total, from invoices, group by vendor ID, okay. So here we have grouped them by vendor ID. From each vendor, let's say vendor ID, okay. So we can say from vendor ID 34, 2 times we have made a purchase, total amount is 1,200. From vendor ID 37, we have made purchase 3 times and total is 564. Like that we can have. And if you want to apply any condition like where clause, if you want to apply any conditions like where clause, you can't use where clause here. Rather, you have to use a clause called having, okay. Say for example, group by having where some invoice total greater than 500. So this where clause cannot be used, okay. We have to use having the total of this invoice must be above 500. So 265 cannot come. They must be above 500. You see, here we have values that are above 500. So if you are going to apply, if we want to have a condition on the aggregate function, we have to use having clause, okay. So having. So where order by group by and then having last order by. So the complete set of this statement will be select, okay, from. We can have a where clause even, where, then group by, having. For the group, if you want to apply any condition like where clause, you can have having, then order by, okay. Any doubts? Here we have vendor ID. Here we can say as number of invoices. We can say total amount. Okay. Also, we can have order by vendor ID. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions?
No, sir.
Fine. Let's apply a where clause and see where invoice total greater than 500. So here, what we have done is we are counting and totaling the invoices that are above 500. Okay. So select all from invoices. In this instance, order by invoice total. So in these invoices, we are not including up to 500. Up to this point, we are not including here. Okay. The others only we are taking into account. Others only we are considering. If the invoice is less than 500, it will not take. Say for example, it is going to first record. So it is going to count. First, it will check whether invoice total is above 500. If it is above 500, it will take. This is less than 500, so it will ignore it. Goes to the second record. Not like that. So it goes one by one until it sees 450. Still, it is below 500. Then it checks 503. So it will take counted 1. So vendor ID will be counted. This becomes 1 and total becomes 503. Okay. Next record it goes and checks. It is above 500. So it is added. This becomes 2 and this is added. Okay. Like that it goes. So 2 in a sense, it checks the number as well. Vendor ID as well. Okay. So vendor ID in a sense, it has to be for the same vendor ID. So 2 means if the same vendor ID only, it will become as 2. Otherwise, it will become another one. Okay. So if you are purchasing from order by vendor ID. So here you see, first it checks invoice total less than 500. It skips. Again, it goes and checks vendor ID 34. It is 1083. So it is taken 1. So vendor ID 34. Here vendor ID 34 and count is 1. Amount is 1083.58. Next it goes 37. It is not true. This is not true. This is not true. So 37 is skipped. And then goes 48. So it is above 500. It counts how many vendor ID is 48. Count 1 and amount is 856.92. Then it goes to 72. Only 1 record. 80, no records. And then 81, 1 record. 82, 1 record. 83, there are 2. Because it takes 83, checks, yes, it is above 500. So count becomes 1. Again, next record it goes 83. So it is also above 500. So it becomes 2, and then these two values will be added together, and this value will become as 2114 or something like that. It comes, okay, like that it will come. For each vendors, it will be doing like this. After setting this, after grouping them all, then it will find whether it is above 500. 500 is not logical because we have already 500. So if there's only 1 or 2, we can check for 1000. Okay, 1000, that is logical. So because already it checks for 500, no need for check 500 again. We can check for 1000 again. Okay, like this it will work. So any doubts?
No, sir.
Fine. Now we will see how we can get the data from two tables. So rather than finding the vendor ID and checking this, we can find vendor name, and then display the total invoice amount like that. So in that instance, it's called select vendor name, okay, vendor name, comma, sum invoice total, okay, invoice total as total amount from vendors join invoices on vendors dot vendor ID equals invoices dot vendor ID. That let's group it, group by, because here we are using an aggregate function, but here a single column name is used without any function. So we have to have it in the group by clause. Okay, from each vendors, how much purchased. Okay, so let have, still we can have this having function, having some invoice total. So we can find average, okay, average invoice total greater than 500. Okay, only average. So we can still have count invoices vendor ID as number of invoices. Okay, here you see number of invoices from one invoice to one invoice, two invoices. Okay, so if you want to display more than two invoices, let's see if it works. And count invoices dot vendor ID greater than or equal to 2. Let's see if it works. Yeah. So only these all ones are removed. Okay, 2 and above, number of invoices 2 and above are included. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions? Please ask any questions. So we have seen aggregate functions and using group by clause, and then having clause, and then joining two tables and retrieving data from two tables and display them. Up to this point we have discussed. So that's all we have for this chapter. So this is a comparison between where and having clause. You can read and understand. Already I have explained it without visiting the slides. I have explained it. And if you have any doubts, please post in our WhatsApp group. Also, you can contact me in person through WhatsApp, and you go through the slides again and again and practice them all. And I will upload the video and the code that we practiced today to the VLE as well as YouTube. Any doubts?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Others? You have to speak out. Any doubts?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So much. So we will finish the class with this. Okay.